Hey everyone, thanks for stopping by my channel. Certainly appreciate you all taking time out of your day to pay me a visit. It's been a long while since I did a how-to painting video. Quite honestly, fishing has been a little slow, and I've been busy, I guess is the best way to put it. I just rebuilt my trailer because that was starting to fall off. Literally had one of the bunks fall off last time I launched my boat. So anyway, I'm going to sneak peek you guys the finished product here, but I also want to add, I've been having a lot of camera issues lately, general equipment issues. You're going to see in this video, there's going to be some points where the audio sucks. There's going to be some black lines going through the footage. It's not the GoPro cameras. I think I've figured out what's causing this issue. It's one of the audio adapters I'm using with the GoPros. We're going to get that sorted out here soon enough, or I'm just going to abandon the audio quality and use the built-in microphones on this. But anyway, I just wanted to add that in real quick. So the video quality on this video is not going to be my usual. Figured may as well kind of get back to the basics and do a painting video. I am going to be painting up kind of a pattern I've been doing a little bit. I don't throw it all that much, but I love it. It's like a citrus plum shad. I don't really know what to call it. I don't really have an official name for it. If you got a suggestion, let me know. But we're going to go ahead and do start to finish video to show you how to whip one of these up. And again, we're going to be doing this on a 1.5 square bill. Normally I get my square bill blanks from Lure Parts Online. They have been sold out of the 272102, I think is the part number that I normally use, for like 4 months. And I'm out of blanks, so I'm trying out Sugar Tit custom lures for the first time. I already did a few in my normal rusty crayfish pattern. I actually haven't used them yet. I ordered the economy ones and the premium, and I don't really know which one's going to be better. I mean, they look identical. The economy ones have a better rattle in it. Anyway, I'm going to be painting the economy ones today. I'm going to save the premium ones for my rusty crayfish color because I just go through those a little too fast. So step one, we got to cover up the bills. I know that some people will paint the bills. I just have always covered them up. Don't really care if they get paint on them. It doesn't have to be perfect. But yep, just slap some tape on there. That one's done. Oh man, these alligator clips are epoxied closed. Let's see if this one's any better. Yeah. One thing that I normally suggest, or at least what I find useful, I never do one bait at a time. I always am painting at least 2. Honestly, I'm typically painting 4. I used to do just 2, but I found that doing 4 is just a lot more efficient. It does take longer, but you know, having to swap out colors every so often just for a single lure, especially a small one like this, just seems wasteful for the paint. So that's one reason. Honestly, the other reason, I normally like mixing some things up, especially if I'm experimenting. So I might do a little bit of a variation on one of these, but it's going to be a very basic pattern. So alright, so once we have the bills covered up, next we need to put a base coat on, and for that I use an opaque white. Definitely prefer the Wicked colors. It just shoots out of the gun a lot easier without having to dilute it. Um, For anyone curious, I normally just leave my airbrush on at about 25 to 30 psi. I really don't adjust it all that much. I don't really do any fine-tuned lures with a lot of detail. I used to back in the day. If I was fishing gin clear water, I'd probably be a little bit more mindful of detail, but the stained, the dirty water that I'm normally fishing, I don't think it makes that big of a difference for if you got one little fin colored compared to the rest of the body. You don't have to do these like super heavy. I just put a little too much white paint in this, so I'm just using up all the paint so to not waste it. Okay, that should be good. So I'm gonna cut out the part where I clean my airbrush in between every color. There's a video that I have on that process. If I remember it, I'll link that video somewhere in this video. But I'm going to cut that out. So after rinsing out my brush, the next thing that I'll do in between every color is heat set. I've just got a cheap old heat gun that I got from Harbor Freight. Those heat sets are very quick if you're using a heat gun. You can use a hair dryer if you want. It just takes a little bit longer. I used to use a hair dryer and upgraded to the heat gun not that long ago. Definitely speeds things up. I am gonna cut out all the other heat sets from now on just to save time in the video, but again, between every color change I'm rinsing out the brush and doing a heat set, so just something to remember. So for the citrus is probably not the best way to describe this, but a pearl lime. I really like pearlized colors. I really think it makes it pop. And best thing about pearl colors, they shoot so easily. Absolutely no need to dilute anything. So for this, I'm gonna mainly be spraying heavy on the bottom. I'm gonna overspray on the top. Mainly gonna be focusing on the bottom of these. In fact, go ahead and turn these. One thing to remember when you're shooting these pearlized colors, be easy on the trigger and especially keep your distance, because if you spray a lot really fast, it will pool and start to drip, and it's going to ruin your ruin the paint job. So I like to go a little darker on this, so I'm going to heat set this real quick and then put on a second coat. Alright, so next up we're going to be doing a violet for the plum color. This is a Wicked brand, just a Wicked Detail Violet. So we're just gonna spray down the top and get some overspray over on the sides. I really like going dark on the spine of these. You may have noticed my brush is starting to clog up for some reason, so I'm gonna have to do a deeper clean after this color, I think. So you'll notice just a downward angle is really the best way to kind of fade that color in. That's absolutely crucial to this. Okay. So after one quick heat set, I'm going to just go down the spine again to kind of darken this up a little bit more. Almost to the point where it looks black. We'll make this one a little different, darken up the tail. We'll keep the other one, that lime green. Okay, and that's it for the violet. Alright, so next I'm going to add some tiger stripes to it. And to do that, we're using a stencil that I got through Lure Parts Online. Part number 3201-253C4. It's for a 2.5 inch crankbait, which is this 1.5. So for these tiger stripes, you've really got two options. You can either go with a transparent black. That works really well. The Detail Sepia by Wicked is another really good option. The black obviously shows up a lot more. The sepia is a little bit more transparent, kind of a ghost pattern, and that's what I want, at least for these two. So I'm going to go ahead and do the sepia and pass on the transparent black. Sepia is one of these colors that if you've never used it, you're really missing out. It can be a little bit frustrating using sepia at times too, because you got to do a few different coats to it for it to kind of work. Well, I should say for it to work in most cases that I've found, at least. So these stencils, they're cheap. They're like $2, I think. So I think they produce a nice color, but it can take a pretty steady hand to use them. So you just kind of line them up. Normally what I'm aiming for with this, you have the bill in the mouth area, and then I try to line up that last hole with the very last hole of the crankbait, just for consistency's sake. I think these holes are actually there for like some way to actually fasten it. I don't have time for that. I don't care that much about these. So I just hold it in place best as I can, and then again with the sepia, I'm gonna have to be a little heavy on the trigger. It almost doesn't even look like you're doing anything. And you can kind of see that. You kind of got them. The thing to remember, it's not going to pop until you put a clear coat on it. So you can almost, again, it's a very ghost-like feature with sepia. I could do a little bit more on the back, and in fact, I think I am. Put this back up there, doing my best to not smudge anything. Hit this back area again. I went a little heavier on that one. So, alright, let's go ahead and turn this around and do it on the other side. And there's our sepia. So those are the colors we're going to be doing. Maybe I'll change one thing up on one of these real quick. So one thing I am going to do real quick to this one, I don't know what to call it. It's one that doesn't have the violet tail. This always sounds good on paper. I'm not normally super happy with the end result, but I'm going to just do this to kind of show you all why, again, I do multiple lures at once, just to give you a little bit of variation here and there, so you can kind of get creative. I'm going to put a little bit of a Crimson Red by Wicked, kind of right around the throat area on this one. This is something I'm going to be really easy on the trigger. Don't want it to be too overpowering. I'm going to work it just a little bit up to the gill plate. Okay, just like that. So next up, we're going to slap some eyeballs on this guy, and first to do that, we're going to use some super glue. Super important to use a gel kind of super glue. If you use just a pure liquid, it's going to go all over the place and can really mess up your paint job. So gel is key. It's a very, very small amount. Just going to dab it on there. And for this color scheme, I'm going to be using a gold color. This is a 1/4 ounce size. It's not an exact fit for the eye sockets, but I think it's the best fit. So what I do with this is you just take a toothpick, you kind of slide it up underneath the eyeball, and you get it right on the tip of the toothpick. And then with another toothpick, you're going to go ahead and set it right in there. But you really don't want to move this toothpick with the eyeball on it. You want to take the other toothpick, kind of apply pressure, and then you're rolling this other toothpick so it's kind of up and out of the way. And then you can just use the other end of that toothpick, because this other end has super glue on it now, to just kind of like push it around and push it into place. You don't want to push it around that much though. That's good enough. Again, it's a little oversized for the eye socket. I probably should be using the next size down, but I like having really big eyeballs on my crankbaits. I think it helps trigger a reaction strike. So we're just going to do that again. Set that right in there. Apply pressure and roll off. Just reposition this. Just like that. For anyone that might be curious, I took off my glove. You don't want to handle super glue when you're using one of those latex gloves. If you get any super glue on that glove, it's just going to destroy that glove. It's easier to just not deal with it. Also, for anyone curious how I have a random cut on my hand now, I had to go take a break to take care of my cat, and that was my cat saying hello to me. So Hello to you, Cad, as well. Alright, one more small dollop of super glue. Okay. So now, important, I'll let that super glue dry. I'll normally give it like 20 minutes, and then we'll come back and clear coat. So it seems we're still having some GoPro issues here. So I get to narrate the rest of this for you fine folks. It's been about 20 minutes. We're going to go ahead and remove that masking tape so we can move on to the next part. So the next part is clear coating, and I use DevCon 30-minute 2-ton epoxy. I've tried a few other type of clear coats. I've been the most happy with DevCon. It's not perfect, but it's the best I've found so far. So what I use for mixing it is just a condiment cup and a popsicle stick to stir it up. And then to brush it on, it's just a super cheap kid's paintbrush, just disposable when it's done. When I'm pouring the epoxy into the condiment cup, I just grab it in both hands and then just apply equal pressure to it. And I'm kind of eyeballing the pools inside that condiment cup and making sure they're about equal. It is important to make sure that you are doing one-to-one mixing with that. And once you've got them all combined here, we'll just stir it up real good with the popsicle stick. Normally give it about 30 seconds. So when you're painting this onto the crankbaits, you really want to try to do as light of coat as possible. It's easier said than done, especially this first kind of few passes. Um, it is important to do it thin though, because if you put it on too thick, even though it is self-leveling, it can cause some issues once it hardens. issues, kind of like clogging some of the eyelets or causing some bumps and bubbles and things like that. So definitely try to brush it on as light as possible. One other thing to note real quick with this epoxy, even though it's 30-minute epoxy, your working time is realistically about 5 to 10 minutes. So when I'm personally doing this at maximum, I'm doing 2 crankbaits. I've tried to do 3, and by the time I get to that third crankbait, it's just so thick that it doesn't even go on smoothly, and there's really not much you can do to salvage it. So you'll end up ruining that crankbait. So one other trick that I do, some people use a torch. I don't have a torch. I just use my heat gun. I do one quick pass on one of the lures on the low heat setting. This will pop any air bubbles. It will also help level out that epoxy if there were any dead spaces or anything like that. Um, so give it one quick pass on the heat gun or like a torch, and then I'll just look over the bait, look for any low spots or any air bubbles or anything like that, and then just paint it down. So the next step, you want to take one of those 2 toothpicks that we used for the eyeball and clear out any of the eyelets. And one little trick that I'll do is as you put it into that eyelet, rotate the toothpick. I help kind of helps clear out any of the excess overflow. And the next thing that we're going to be doing here is moving that lure over onto the rotisserie. Just want to show you guys real quick what I mean by a rotisserie. This is a lure turner that I built out of a microwave turnstile motor and some scrap wood. The epoxy is self-leveling, but the consensus is you still want a lure turner to make sure that finalized product is as best as possible. All right, so here is what the finished products look like. Well, I guess I shouldn't say finished, but after we're done with the rotisserie. Again, leave it on the rotisserie for about 20 hours or more. These I left on there for 2 days just because I got busy with other things. Really like the way that they turned out. I really think that sepia pops a lot nicer once you've got that clear coat on there. And I actually like the way that the red showed up on that one on the right here. So even with that toothpick clearing out the eyelets, generally you'll get at least one. In this one, we did get one right there in that middle eyelet that still had some epoxy get over it and closed it out. But only 1 out of 6 potential, not that bad of odds. So there's a few ways to get this addressed. In the past, I've tried using X-Acto knives. I've broken a lot of X-Acto knife blades doing that. They're just fragile. I've tried using like a cheap jig eye buster tool. You can see here, all it really does is just bend that jig eye tool. There is one proven way that works for me, and I'm going to show it to you here, but I cannot stress enough how utterly stupid and dangerous it is. If you're going to try this, full disclosure, it's a use at your own risk. And if you do it, you got to be able to accept the potential of you might be burying a monster size hook into your finger if things get messed up. I've been doing it for about 2 years now. I've never had an issue. I've never hooked myself. I've never really slipped bad enough to even cut my finger with a hook. But definitely something that I am very hesitant to even show you guys, but it works. It works perfect for me. That's just a big old musky bucktail with a 3/0 hook that I just use that hook to bury into that epoxy and just kind of push out that clog. Kind of what I'm trying to point out here. When you're looking at one of those clogs, uh, look on both sides. There's typically one side that's kind of concaved and the other side kind of bulges out. With the hook, you need to approach first on the concave side, trying it on the side with the bulge. You're more prone to slipping off, and doing that will likely get a hook in your hand. So you definitely need to hold that lure as firm as you possibly can. Make sure that your fingers are out of that kind of line of sight if your hook does slip. I'm very meticulous in how I hold these lures as I'm doing this, um, being as careful as possible. Um, yeah, here I am just explaining what I just explained. Again, looking for the concave. On this one, it was on the worst side. The bill is a little bit in the way. So the motion's going to be just a smooth downward force, and once you kind of get started, you'll kind of work the hook side to side, and that will just kind of help open up that hole a little bit more here. And again, just hold on to dear life and make sure you're holding on to that lure nice and tight. And you'll see that tip of the hook start going in there. And once it kind of pokes just a little bit through the other side, that's all you need. At that point, you flip the hook around to the other side, again, being really careful. And then you just do the same thing. Push it in through the hole that you just created, wiggle it side to side. And at that point, you'll be able to just kind of start digging out that epoxy. Very important that you're only digging out around the eyelet. You don't want to work too close to the body of the lure. You don't need the entire eyelet clear. You just need a hole big enough for that split ring to fit through. Because if you start getting close to that body, once you compromise the clear coat of the lure, it might just start chipping off, and you're gonna have a wasted lure at that point. Once you kind of got that hole created and we're finished here, I'll just kind of go in with my fingernails and clear out any loose particles left. And again, you can kind of see there, that hole is really only about half of the size of what the eyelet is. That's all you need. So next up, we're going to be putting split rings onto the bill. For anyone that hasn't done this before, you definitely need to have split rings on the front of the crankbait for it to run right. I use just a standard pair of split ring pliers, and instead of trying to thread the actual like split ring onto the eyelet, I will just slip it on in between the gap that the split ring plier creates. And once you slip it on there, all you have to do is rotate it. So you got it on there, and then I'm just using my finger to rotate it 90 degrees. And then you can just kind of thread it through. I don't know, I was using my fingers there. I almost always use pliers like I'm showing you here. I have just a normal pair of pliers, makes this a lot easier and a lot faster. And there you go. That's your split ring on the front of your crankbait. Next up, we're going to be getting our hooks kind of prepped up. So I normally like getting all of my hooks ready to go before installing them. I think it's a little more efficient. So I'm using KVD triple grip size 6. These are short shank hooks. Absolutely the greatest hooks I've ever found for crankbaits. I haven't tried a whole lot of them, to be honest, but out of the ones that I've tried, these are the best. So we're going to be putting the split rings on these kind of the same way that I showed you uh, putting them on the front of the crankbait. So to stage these, I'll just slip them on there, turn them 90 degrees, and just kind of have them threaded. I don't put them all the way on there. I want that gap to be on there so it's a lot easier to slip onto the crankbait. So once we have all those hooks prepped and ready to go, we'll start putting them on the crankbaits. I always start at the front of the crankbait, work my way back, and just like the split ring in the front, I'll just slip the split ring on and then rotate it 90 degrees, and then use my pliers to start threading them on there. Don't use your fingers like I'm doing here. You can see why it doesn't work well. Once you start using pliers, it makes it a lot easier. So when you're putting these on, it's important to check to make sure that that hook is fully seated in that split ring. Sometimes when you're going really fast, like in that case, the hook will still get stuck in the split ring. So next up, I'm going to show you. This is the one that we had to carve that eyelet out. Um, no different, same approach as always. The one thing to note with this, typically when you have to carve out a chunk of that epoxy, the range of motion on the split ring is not what it should be. Now, you could go back and you can dig out some more of that epoxy if you want to, but the simplest approach, just move the split in the split ring up to the top of the section, of the eye ring, and you'll get your full range of motion most of the time once you do that. You'll see that here. All right, everyone, that's the finalized product. Sorry for all the crappy video issues I had on this. I think I've narrowed the issue down to my USB audio power adapter. I don't think that it's the GoPro cameras themselves, but I'm still going to work that out with GoPro because this is driving me nuts. Anyway, thanks again for sticking with me this entire time, and I will see you all on the next video.